Hello everyone, welcome to Attribute Concepts. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to create the basic bodice block for women. I've already done a video on how to take proper measurement to create this bodice block. It's already on this channel. Please go check it out so that you know how to take proper measurement to create your bodice block. Creating a bodice block is not the most important thing here. Knowing how to take proper measurement to create this block is more important than the block that we are trying to create today. Because when you take the wrong measurement to create your block, and at the end you use that block to create garment, that garment is not going to fall well. Why? Because all the measurements from the beginning was all wrong. So I encourage you to please go watch that video and take all the measurement from 1 to 12 the way it's instructed in that video. Then you cannot use it to create your bodice block. As for me, I've already used that measurement video to put down all the measurements that I need to create this bodice block for my dress form. It's from 1 to 12. All the measurements already be simplified so that it will be easy for you to use to create your bodice block. Please, you go do the same. Before we go to the drafting table, I must not fail to tell you what I do on this channel. This channel is strictly all about fashion and creativity. On this channel, I do tutorial in menswear, women's wear, children's wear. Creating things from things I don't really have need for. Maybe things I want to throw away. I'll reconstruct them and bring something nice out of them. So, as a man, men are very good with fashion these days. The big shots in the fashion industry are mostly men. So, it doesn't matter as a man, woman, boy, girl, you are interested in learning fashion from A to Z. I strictly recommend this channel for you. And if you already have knowledge about fashion, you want to learn more, I also recommend this channel for you. Please subscribe, and when you are subscribed, don't forget to click that notification bell, the bell beside the subscription button. That bell and the subscription button work together. When you click the subscription button, immediately please click that notification bell, and when you click that bell, 3 options will come out. Click the first one, which is ALL. Once you've done that, you are good to go. Why am I emphasizing on that bell? Because I don't want you to miss out in any of my teachings. There are loads of teachings that are going to be coming on this channel that I want you to be part of. If you want to learn fashion in a short period of time, please subscribe and click that bell. Thank you. These are the tools that I'm going to be using in drafting this bodice block today. Here I have my straight rulers, my measuring tape. The measuring tape and the straight rulers, they are both the same. They both carry the same numbers. I don't want to confuse you when you see me using a straight ruler. You think they are not the same. They are both the same. Depends on the one you are comfortable with. I'll be using both in this drafting today. Here I have my sellotape to stick the paper down, a pair of scissors, a writing pad and a pen, the French curves, pencil and eraser. I encourage you to use pencil to do your drafting. When you make mistake along the line, have eraser by your side to always erase and continue. When you finally get it right, you cannot transfer it to the hard copy paper, which is the re-block paper. I have my pink marker and green. You can use any colors of markers that you like. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to be using markers in drafting this bodice block today because I want you at home to see the lines vividly. If not, I would have also used pencil to draft this bodice block. Here I have my lighter pattern paper. I encourage you to use lighter pattern paper to do your drafting. When you finish drafting and it's perfect, you cannot transfer it to the hard copy paper, which is the final thick block paper. And if you don't have some of these tools, especially these French curves, don't bother yourself. Just use whatever you have and you'll finally get the same result. Yes, I'm using this just to make my tutorial very fast. I have here my 2 pattern papers. I'm going to use half part of the back to create the back bodice, and I'm going to use half part of the front to create the front bodice. We are going to keep the back part aside and start with the front. Before we start, there are 2 measurements I want you to bear in mind. That's the vertical measurements and the horizontal measurements. The vertical measurements are the measurements coming from up straight down, while the horizontal measurements are the measurements going across. These are the 2 measurements that we are going to be working with today. And I'm going to go with the measurements I took from a measurement video is from 1 to 12. And I'm also going to go according to how they are numbered on that video. So if you've not seen that video, like I said before, please go check it out and use that video to take all the measurements that you need to create your bodice block. It's very important. So the number one I have on my list here is the full length of the bodice. The full length of my dress form bodice is 24. I think I have more than enough pattern paper length that will cover what I'm going to draft here today. Make sure you have good length of pattern paper that you are going to draft in. Number two, width of the bodice. The width of my bodice is 10. I have more than enough pattern paper that will cover the width of my dress form bodice. Make sure you have enough pattern paper that will cover the width of the bodice that you are creating. Before we go to number 3, I'm going to draw a line about an inch away from my pattern paper. This line is our starting point. It happens to be the highest part of the bodice that we are creating. And again, it's the neck and the shoulder line. And some of the measurements are going to be taken from this particular line. Number 3 is the bust vertical measurement. To create that bust vertical measurement, I am going to put my ruler at this line here, our starting point, which is the highest part of the bodice. My bust vertical measurement is 10. I'm going to measure 10 from this shoulder line here down. Then I'll mark. Number 4 is the waist vertical measurement. So my waist vertical measurement is 16. So from this highest part, which is the shoulder line, I'm going to measure 16 down. Then I'll mark. Number 5 is the hip vertical measurement. My hip vertical measurement is 24. So I'm going to measure 24 from this highest part of the shoulder down to 24. Like that. So I'm going to bring this ruler to the extreme end of this pattern paper and mark the same 10, 16, and 24. Why? To enable me get accurate horizontal lines. The next step is to label our lines so that we know which is which as we go along. This is the shoulder line, bust line, waist line, and the hip line. And this line is the center front. Center front. Number 6, neck circumference. My neck circumference is 15. And I'm going to divide that 15 by 2. I'll have 7.5 because I'm using half part of it. For me to get the depth, I'm going to measure 3 from the center front. To find the width, I'm also going to measure 3 from the shoulder line. This happens to be a standard method of creating neckline. So I'm going to connect this point to this point with a French curve. If you don't have a French curve, don't bother yourself. Carefully maneuver it with your hand. Like that. Number 7, shoulder measurements. My shoulder measurement is 15 and I'm going to divide that 15 by 2. I'll have 7.5 because I'm using half part of the front. This is the 7.5 here. And I'm going to add half an inch for ease allowance because our body is not a robot, our body moves. So I'm adding half an inch ease allowance to enable our body move to any direction. So I'll now have 8. I'm going to mark 8 here. I'm going to slope this point by 1 inch because when you look at the end of your shoulder, it's not really straight, it's kind of on the slope. So I'm going to slope it with 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect this point to this shoulder point here. So we don't need this line now. This is our new line now. Number 8, armhole depth circumference. My armhole depth circumference is 15. When I divide 15 by 2, I will have 7.5. And this is the 7.5. This is the 7.5. And I'm going to go ahead and add half an inch ease allowance. When I add half an inch ease allowance, I'll have 8. So I'm going to mark 8. Before I remove the ruler, I'm going to find the midpoint between this point here and this 8 point here. The midpoint of this 8 is 4. So I'm going to mark 4. This midpoint here, I'm going to go ahead and step it back by half an inch, like that. I'm going to step this point again back with 1 inch. These are the 3 points that I have there. This point here, from here to here, is 8. Then I'm going to rule a line across it. And this line will now serve as our upper bust. Upper bust line. So for me to create the armhole properly, I have to take the circumference of the bust line. Number 9 is the bust circumference. My bust circumference is 36. When I divide 36 by 4, I'll have 9 because I'm using 1/4 of the bodice. This is that 9. I'm going to go ahead and add half an inch for ease allowance. That will be 9.5. I'll mark 9.5 here. Then I'm going to go ahead and measure the same 9.5 at the upper bust, like that. With this bust circumference, I'll be able to create the armhole properly. To create the front armhole, I'm going to connect this point to this last point here, this point to this point here at the upper bust with a French curve. If you don't have a French curve, please carefully maneuver it with your hand. Then I'm going to connect this point to this center point, this center point to this point here for the back armhole line. I'm going to use a green marker to differentiate the back armhole line from the front one. Number 10, waist circumference. My waist circumference is 30. When I divide 30 by 4, I'll have 7.5 because I'm using 1/4 of the bodice. This is the 7.5 here. Then I'm going to go ahead and add half an inch. That will be 8 for ease allowance. And I'm going to add 1 inch for that. That is going to come to this area later. That will be 9. And I'm going to mark 9. Number 11. My hip circumference is 40. When I divide 40 by 4, I'll have 10. And here's the 10. I'm going to go ahead and add half an inch for ease allowance. It will be 10.5. Mark 10.5 there. Then I'm going to connect this point to this point to this point with a French curve because our side is not entirely straight, it's kind of on a curve. I'm going to fade this sharp edge out with a French curve, like that. The last number here is the nipple to nipple measurement. This nipple to nipple measurement is what we are going to use to draft our center dart. My nipple to nipple measurement is 7. And when I divide 7 by 2, I'll have 3.5. I'm going to measure that 3.5 at the bust line. Then you come to the hip level and still measure the same 3.5 to enable me get accurate vertical line. Then I'm going to connect this point to this point. Before I connect both points, I'm going to measure 1 inch down from the nipple point. Why? To free the nipple area, like that. And I'll come to the hip line and measure 2 inches upward from this point here. Why? To also free the hip area. Then I'll now draw the line, connect this point to this point here. The 1 inch that I added to the waistline earlier, we are going to use it now. And I'm going to divide that 1 inch. half an inch on this side, half an inch on this side, like this. Then this point to this point, 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 with a French curve. If you don't have a French curve, please carefully maneuver it with your hand. So the next step is to create the side dart. We need the side dart to give our bust a proper fitting. To create that side dart, I normally measure 2.5 inches from this armhole upper bust point here down. So I'm going to measure that 2.5 now. Here. Then I'm going to connect this point to this nipple point. Before I connect this point to the nipple point, I'm going to measure 1 inch from this nipple point down. Why? To free the nipple area like the way I did with the center front. To finish the side dart properly, I'm going to take 1 inch from this side seam and use it to finish the side dart. So that 1 inch, I'm going to divide it half an inch on this side, half an inch on this side, like half an inch on this side, half an inch on this side. Then I'm going to connect this point to this point, this point to this point. After the side seam here, we are going to create something like a triangle to enable all our dart in properly. To do that, you have to extend this center line with half an inch. Then you connect this point to this point, this point to this point. So the 1 inch that we took from this side seam, we are going to bring it back. If you don't bring it back, at the end you create your garment with your block. Instead of the garment to fall straight like this, it's going to go like this. So how do you bring it back? You add 1 inch at the bottom, like that. Connect this point to this point. Connect this point to this center point here. So to finish it up, I'm going to create the back neckline. To create that back neckline, I'm going to measure 1 inch at the center front with a green marker because it's the back. Now I'm going to connect this point to this point here with a French curve. Our front bodice is completed. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to pull it up and trim away the edges. So as I'm trimming, I'm going to trim the back neckline with it and the back armhole line with it. I've cut out the front bodice. I'm going to put the back pattern paper under the front bodice and use this front bodice to give the back bodice the proper shape. I'm going to trim the back bodice along with the front bodice. Make sure you stick it together so that they don't shift. Before I trim it out, I'm going to fold this to the back because the dart is only at the front, not at the back. This line does not apply to the back. I've successfully used the front bodice to give the back bodice a proper shape. Now, I don't need this back neckline anymore and the back armhole line anymore. I'm going to trim it out. I've trimmed the back neck line out and also trimmed the armhole back line out. Now I'm going to bring these 3 lines to the back bodice. Make sure you line them up properly. This is how I do it. I'm going to push the front bodice forward a little bit like this. Then I'll mark like this, like that. Then I'm going to push the front bodice back a little bit and also mark this point there, here and here. Then I'll take it off. Then I'm going to connect this point to this point, this point to this point, this point to this point. And this is still the upper bust line, waist line, hip line. I'm still going to use the nipple to nipple measurement to create the back dart like I did in the front. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 7, and I'm going to divide that 7 by 2. I will still have 3.5. I'm still going to use 3.5 the way I did with the front. This is 3.5. I'm going to mark. I'm still going to measure 3.5 at the hip line to enable me get straight, accurate vertical line. Then I'm going to connect this point to that point. Before I connect this point to this point, from this nipple point, I'm going to measure 1/2 inch up, like that. Then I'll come to the hip level 2. I'll measure 2 inches up as well, like that. Then I'm going to connect this new point now to this one. 1 inch that we added to the front waist area still applies to the back. So that 1 inch, I'm going to divide it 1/2 inch on this side, 1/2 inch on the other side. 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch. Connect this point to this point, 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 like I did in the front. That's the dart. So I'm going to finish it up by separating the zip allowance from the main body. I'm going to draw a straight line to separate the zip allowance from the main body. And this is the zip allowance. The front bodies and the back bodies are completed. This is the front, and this is the back. I recopied this master draft. This is called master draft, and I added 1/2 inch seam allowance all around it, and I used it to cut out calico. Calico is the fabric that I use for trial and error. I cut it out and I sewed it together, tried it on my mannequin, and the bodice fits my mannequin perfectly. So I now decided to transfer this master draft. This is called master draft, so the proper block that we are talking about. This is the real hard copy block. You can see this is thicker than this. This is just ordinary light pattern paper, and this is the real hard copy paper that I am talking about. This is what we've arrived at. So I don't really need this anymore. This is our new block now. Anytime I want to create any blouse from shoulder level to the waist level or to the hip level, I'll bring out my block, copy it with a lighter pattern paper, and I'll add 1/2 inch seam allowance all around it like this. Then I will now use this to cut out whatever fabric I want to use for my blouse. Yes, this one is going to be with me. This one is for kids. Please carefully follow every steps that I've taken in creating this bodice block, and at the end you are definitely going to get the same result. Try it out. When you finish creating it like I did, recopy it and add 1/2 inch seam allowance all around the edges. Then use it to cut out any fabric that you are not using and sew it together. If you use your body measurement that you've used to create the bodice block, then try it on. If it fits you perfectly, you can now transfer that master draft to the real hard copy paper. If there's any adjustment that you need to adjust those measurements on your master draft. This is the master draft. Then when you finish adjusting it, you try it on again. If you finally get it right, then you cannot transfer it to your hard copy paper. That's the block paper that we are talking about. As a beginner, it's very good for you to have bodice block to create any blouse of any style from shoulder level to the hip level. With a bodice block, you can construct any type of blouse that you want. This is just the basic. I think that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give me thumbs up. And if you have any question at all, don't forget to leave it at the comment section below. I'll be more than glad to answer any of your questions. Yes. And if you've not subscribed to this channel, please try and do so, because I don't want you to miss out in any of my teachings. There are loads of teachings that are going to be coming on this channel that I want you to be part of. If you want to learn fashion in a short period of time, please subscribe and don't forget to click that notification bell. That bell is very important for notifications. And please help share this video to others so that they know how to create the bodice block the proper way. Yes. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video.